Okay, so we're recording. Welcome to episode 1 of the Wayside View. My name's Lewis. I'm joined today by Tom. Say hi, Tom.
How's it going?
Perfect, perfect. So, as I said, this is the first time we're doing this, so it might be a bit janky, it might be a bit rusty, but bear with me.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We know ball. So today what's on the agenda for today? We're gonna go through the first couple of games of the Premier League, the Crystal Palace vs Arsenal game and the Fulham Liverpool game. We're gonna then talk a bit more about the Premier League generically on the start of this season. You're gonna hear our Premier League predictions, and if we've got time, we're gonna I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Improve some knowledge upon you from the past. So Tom, I think we'll start off with the Crystal Palace Arsenal game.
Yep, so typical London derby at Selhurst Park. Obviously saw Arsenal start the Premier League debut pretty comfortably, I'd say. I mean, they controlled, I'd say, 60% of the game. There was spells of, exposure from Palace, but all in all, I'd say a good 3 points for Arsenal, and hopefully they can continue to progress, because I think they are still, definitely in that transitioning phase, but it's looking promising, so...
Definitely, I think transitional phase is definitely the word that I'd use. But it's to be fair, it's interesting we use that phrase with Arsenal, but not with Crystal Palace, who are more definitely going through a transitional style of play. You know, after years and years of Roy Hodgson's style of play, which is probably more effective than pretty, to Patrick Vieira, who's really trying to sort of imbue his own style upon the team. And last season was very much a clear out and a reset, and this I think is building on it for Palace. I mean, talking about the game though, I think it was one of those games where strangely both teams were very impressive, and it's, as you say, both teams dominated. It wasn't one of those where there was a lot of sort of even spells throughout the game. It was either all Arsenal or all Palace.
Yep, yep.
I think Arsenal dominated pretty much the first 35-40 minutes. Palace, probably as expected at home, had a go at them end of the first half through the second, and then once Arsenal got their second goal, it really knocked them out.
I mean, when you look at the stats on paper, I mean, it was a very close draw. Both had 10 shots on target, both about around 50% possession. But I really don't think that justifies, obviously, how well Arsenal did. They definitely looked more hungry than I think we've seen them in previous seasons. But I think they've just got a bit more...
There was a defensive...
Just a bit more of momentum coming into this season. I think Arteta's obviously brought a bit of a different dynamic with them, and they looked solid right across the board from the back. And obviously, Saka's second goal was a bit fluky, I'd say, but he still looks as promising. Yeah, still looks promising.
It was. I mean, I've got the stats up on screen here now, and it's one of those. It's like you look at the possession, Palace 56 to Arsenal's 43, and it's probably expect that Palace at home. I think it's important. I think if you look at the passes is the main one. Like Palace had nearly 100. Well, in fact, had 120 more passes than Arsenal. Which, if you said that 2-3 years ago, you would have been completely amazed. But then if you look at the tackles and clearances, Arsenal 29, 24 clearances. It was a real defensive steal from Arsenal that I haven't seen in years before. It was.
They just looked very fluid. I mean, they were playing more of a 4-3-3 as opposed to Palace, who were kind of playing like a 4-2-3-1 as such. So I definitely felt like
4-2-4 by the end of the game.
It definitely left Palace, a little bit exposed. But I think top and bottom of it is just Arsenal were very clinical. They looked confident on the ball. They were taking chances. Really dominating possession in spells of the game, and especially with a London derby, you're always going to have that where you're going to switch to more of a defensive standpoint and let the game pan out, and you have to be comfortable not always dominating possession as such. But just to name a few, I mean, Zinchenko looked tremendous. He was really flattened down that left side and put some great balls in. I mean, Xhaka, Odegaard, Saka, and then Gabriel for 50 million. I think that's an absolute bargain.
I think that's probably it's my signing of the summer. Really, I know I've probably spoiled that later on, but it's the one signing where I'm like, no, that's a really good bit of business. I think it worked well for Jesus. It works well for Arsenal. It probably works well for City as well. I was surprised.
Oh, definitely.
I was very surprised to let him go, But despite not scoring, which I know has absolutely ruined a lot of fantasy Premier League teams, I think he played very well. He made things happen. You know, it sounds a bit cliche, but you know when
Yeah,
players
he felt like it really
lively.
gelled in with the team. It felt like he'd been there like a good couple of years. He felt like he really embodied it, and he was very keen going forward. You know, he had a couple of good 1v1s. You know, trying to move possession up the pitch, trying to be, have spatial awareness and ping some good passes together. But yeah, they just looked confident, man. They looked really promising.
No, it really didn't look like his debut is probably the best way I can describe it. It was very solid. Zinchenko, you touched upon, he was very direct up and down the wing. I think we knew that's how he was going to be. He stepped into midfield very nicely as sort of that inverted sort of wing back that we've seen from the Manchester City system. Obviously Arteta, being assistant manager there, Zinchenko coming from there, I think that's something we can see. I mean, that's something that was demonstrated by Ben White playing as sort of a right back, but then he'd come forward in the midfield to create sort of like a 2-3-5 system in attack, which, it sounds a bit crazy, but it works very well on paper and worked very well on the night, to be fair. And that first half absolutely dominated Palace.
Yeah, I mean, they just had such great fluidity. I mean, you can tell Zinchenko's obviously played for City for quite a while now, the play style he's adopted. And, I mean, personally, I wouldn't say he's one of them players that has, like, star quality, but he's a very solid player that I think would walk into a lot of Premier League teams. But especially going forward, the contributions he can make, I mean, especially in the final third, Arsenal looked that they were pinging passes together, looked composed. It was just purely confidence, I think, that we haven't seen in Arsenal for a while.
It was you think of Arsenal of the early 2000s, sort of when we were growing up, that type of pick, they had that real swagger about them. I think that came back the night. I think for a lot of that second half they were under a lot of pressure. I mean, Anderson sort of, there was long balls out from defence, they were phenomenal. I was watching the match and it was like he's centre back for Crystal Palace making 35-40 yard passes. What? It was incredible. And it did put Arsenal's highlight under quite a bit of pressure, but they dealt with it. I mean, and that's the other debutant as well. After 2-3 years, Saliba for Arsenal, French young player of the season last season. He looked solid, absolutely solid. I think he ended up getting the man of the match, if I remember right. He looked, straight away Premier League quality. I can't remember how old he is.
20, I mean, don't get me wrong. If I was a Palace fan, I wouldn't be disheartened from this game. Like, no discredit to Palace at all. I think if they play competitively like they did today, then I think they'll go on to win a lot of games this season and
definitely
give us some good games.
I think
wouldn't completely write them off as of yet. I feel like as we discussed recently, they are still as well going through a transitioning phase.
Yeah, definitely.
Ayew, Zaha, just to name a few.
I mean,
they've definitely got quality.
Definitely. The one thing, I mean, I agree with you. I think the Palace play like that. Every game they'll win more games than they'll lose. Certainly. I think the one thing I did have in my notes is I think Palace's attack, other than Zaha, it's a little bit blunt.
Lacking in areas. Yeah.
Like, there's no one there. When you think each team, and you're like, no, that's a decent striker, or they're a good. Yes, they've got Zaha. But he's the wrong side of 30 and that now.
He's starting to become over the hill. I feel 5 years ago he was a really good prospect, but the only thing I always feel with Palace is they can never kill a game. They always struggle in that final third. I think to really get the ball into the box and create some chances. They're always hovering around the final third, but it's stringing some passes together and trying to work together. I feel like they really struggle at times to try and overcome that. But
well, do you know what? I've just said Palace's don't have an attack, a striker that gets me really excited. I'd like to apologise to Hudson Edouard. I think he's actually one of the most exciting prospects in the Premier League. We'll forget what we've done there and completely forget about one of the
he's only 24.
Yeah, he's very promising.
He's very young.
Palace, all right in attack. It was one of those things I looked. I thought if they had, it was maybe. They don't have a different type of forward. I think that's what I meant to say. They've got, Zaha, Edouard. They're very good, but there's nothing to change it. You know what I mean?
I mean, let's not forget Arsenal have spent £115 million.
No, I think.
And new signings, and they just feel like they've got a really good spine to the team.
Yeah,
Straight down the middle. They look really solid, and I can imagine there's going to be some really competitive North London derbies. And
that's a game I want to see this season because Spurs have,
yeah,
second season with Conte now. They've had a good transfer window as well. Out of any two clubs in the league, I feel like the two that push each other and keep themselves as neck and neck as possible, as much as possible, are Spurs and Arsenal. Like,
I mean, let's take it back. This time last year in April, like towards the back end of the season, they lost 3-0.
Yeah.
So I think, purely the performance that they put out today shows how much improvement that they have made. Besides the money, I feel like you can definitely see the improvements they've made on the pitch as well.
Yeah, it's not just the new players. It's not just the ones they've brought in. It's the sort of team mentality. I think Arsenal were a team that always, it was never the quality of the players. It was always the mentality of the players. I think just to round that game off, though, because we've talked about it for 10 minutes now, and I think we've said all we've had to say. I think to sum it up for both teams in a word, I'd say encouraging. Both
definitely.
teams really impressed me. So that was the Premier League opener. Very, exciting game. I'll say this is a very loud Selhurst Park. It's a great little stadium, nice and tight. It's small, cramped. It must be awful to play in.
Really, really old school throwback. I feel
proper. It's one of the last few proper old school ones.
Right, moving on swiftly.
Moving on though, yes, moving on. I'm not a Palace fan.
Sure.
I don't know. I've got a soft
Hopefully there's another Amazon documentary coming out.
I've got a soft look with them after me Football Manager exploits with them. Anyway, moving on, because we're not going into Football Manager. We'll be here all week.
I think predominantly this was the big one that a lot of people have their eyes on today.
Yes.
Obviously after recent signings that Liverpool have made, but it really did live up to its expectations. I thought a really good competitive game, which did surprise a lot of people, including myself.
It did, and it surprised us so much. You've started talking about it before we've even introduced it. It's just a little hint. If you haven't gathered by now, it's the Fulham Liverpool game, the early Saturday kickoff. And fair play to the Liverpool fans for having to get down to London for half 11 on a Saturday. That's an early kickoff. But it was a crazy game, I think, as Tom alluded to there. It didn't go the way I think anyone expected. Fulham very much tips to do what they've done the past 2 seasons they've been in the Premier League and go down without a fuss. They are coming up off a very, very good championship season. Mitrovic absolutely on fire, goals coming out of everywhere for him. But I think Liverpool have been so dominant in recent years. Everyone thought, all right, they'll turn up to Craven Cottage, 3-0, that'll do. I think they played Norwich for their opening game last season, and it was 4-1. I think it was out of memory.
Very dominating.
And I think people were expecting a repeat of that, and Fulham said no and absolutely dominated in the first half.
Really threw a spanner in the works. I mean, not to forget, I feel like Liverpool did have a bit more of an exaggerated, draining season last year, especially with the coming second in the Champions League and obviously in the Prem. I feel like it was kind of a bit disheartening for them.
And I think there's the mental aspect, there's the physical aspect. They played every single game that they possibly could have. They went to all the finals. They played obviously the 38 Premier League games as well. And this
is no discredit to Liverpool as well, but I just felt like it was very disjointed today. It felt like they were stuck in third gear the entirety of the match.
They were very good going forward, but particularly in the second half, after 50 minutes when Firmino came on and Nunes came on. I mean, Nunes, we've spoken about this before, but he from how he played in the charity shield against City and now just causes chaos is the word, isn't it? He comes on.
Oh, absolutely.
He drives straight at defenders, which they absolutely hate. He's big, he's lanky, he's awkward, but he's technically very good. And we'll talk about him a bit more as we talk about how the match progressed. But as you're saying, the disjointed, the defence today for Liverpool. I mean, the word I've got in my notes is very un-Liverpool like, and it was. Normally, you think Liverpool's defence, you think of think of Van Dijk, cool, calm, collected, and they weren't. It was all a bit frantic. A lot of sort of last man tackles going in. I think Alexander-Arnold, I'm a big fan of his, and people, like to say, we can't defend and stuff like that. But today he really struggled. He left a lot of space in behind. I mean, normally you've got Henderson will sort of come in and sit in that gap while he pushes forward and does the sort of overlaps with Salah and that type of thing. That's what we saw a lot of last season, but it just wasn't happening today.
I mean, there's always the question, that gets raised without Thiago, because I do think he is such a crucial player for Liverpool, and he really joins that spine of the team and helps distribution, from the defence moving forward. Because I feel like, as we talked the other day, the defender's role has changed massively, but I feel like he's that crucial link, especially for Liverpool. He's been so key for them. I feel like he's I wouldn't say he's underappreciated, but I think he's got such good quality in him. And today, especially the midfield, I mean, Jordan Henderson, Fabinho, it looked like they were stuck in third gear. But from the back, starting from the back, they just looked a bit all over the place, especially Matip. He had a really poor game, and obviously Van Dijk giving away the penalty. It wasn't classic Liverpool defending at all, or to what a lot of people would have imagined,
Definitely. Well, Matip is the right-sided centre back, so obviously he was getting a little bit left short and sort of outnumbered with Alexander-Arnold being out of position.
It seems to be his pace which always
definitely
lets him down.
I mean, it was Mitrovic as well. He absolutely bullied that back line. He bullied Van Dijk like I've never seen him being bullied before.
It was like a pit bull moving forward.
It was just,
and you've seen him when he got the 1v1 with Van Dijk. He was keen. He had one thing in his mind, and he was going past him, and obviously which led to the foul, which I think was the correct decision. There was decent contact, and absolutely bagged it past Alisson. I mean, the keeper had no chance. It feels like he hasn't stopped playing from the back end of last season. The great run on form he had, and obviously breaking records and whatnot. I feel like he's going to be a really good prospect, and might be early days, but 2 goals. I'll take it.
I definitely, not much better start the season, really, is there? I think that's the question a lot of people had with Fulham and Mitrovic coming up from the Championship. Could he carry that goal scoring ability into the Premier League? I don't think anyone's expecting them to get 30, 40 goals this season, but I think 20. That's a good return. I think if you're a side that's looking to avoid the drop, if you've got a striker that can score 20 goals a season. Unless you're Crystal Palace with Charlie Austin. Crystal Palace. I'm stuck on the last one. QPR.
How do you feel about moving on? The front three for Liverpool, because it has changed obviously with Mane's departure, and obviously they're playing Firmino and Diaz and Salah. I feel like even on the rough days, Liverpool's front three can always perform because of the quality that they've played at for so long. But Diaz, cracking player, hit the post a few times. Bit unlucky, straight across the face of the goal, and obviously Salah just kind of dropping back a bit, distributing, and obviously getting in on a goal himself. But I think the one everyone was talking about is the new signing for Liverpool.
Darwin Núñez.
Núñez. I'm going to butcher his name. Yeah.
Just call him Darwin, you'll get that right. Well, I mean, Firmino played about the 50th minute, and they looked a bit disjointed. Firmino plays quite deep. I think he got sort of stuck in that midfield when the midfield weren't playing very well, and then 50 minutes Klopp bought Núñez on for Firmino, and it changed the dynamic of Liverpool's attack completely. They went from having a sort of false nine to a very much like an advanced forward who runs straight at defenders and pulls people out of position. He's very, very good. I've said it on the top. He just causes chaos. And then for his goal, that's exactly what he did. He gets it, he plays it out wide. Salah gets it across, and the finish is absolutely sublime. I mean, he had one like that about 5 minutes before, which the keeper saved. But the cross in and the sort of the finish with the back foot around the back.
Yeah, himself. I mean, you do get them elements.
Sumptuous.
Obviously, as a clinical striker as such, but it felt intentional.
No, it absolutely was, because he tried to do it about 5 minutes before. It was a beautiful finish, and then for the second goal, it's played into Núñez.
And then obviously Salah got the finish.
I think him and Salah are going to have a lovely combination this season. I think it gives Salah someone to play off, but it also gives Salah someone to play the ball into. Salah particularly with Mane last season, got accused of being selfish with the ball. I think sometimes though there wasn't the scope for Salah to play the ball in sort of on the edge of the box to either cross it in for the striker to finish because Firmino would be deep, or to play into the centre forward to have that 1-2 for then Salah to finish. That's what we've not seen. We'd seen Salah try and come in on his left foot and take a shot across goal. Against the one against Chelsea, I think. Class one. But those goals are 1 in 10, really.
I know what you mean about Firmino trying to, keep the distance and almost set back a bit for the player to almost overlap him. But and I know we talked about recently about City's obviously the distribution of goals throughout the entire team. But I don't feel like Nunez and Salah will be a hindrance to each other. I think they'll complement each other really well. Kind of that poaching mentality, almost as if I can't score, you can score.
I think they'll almost play sort of the old style little and large striker, you know what I mean? Just happens one of them is an inside forward off the wing. I think we'll probably see a better goal spread across Liverpool. I think we'll not see Salah get the 25-30 goals. I think definitely high 20s. I think Nunez will probably end up on 15 goals, I'd say, this season. 10 assists.
But once again, no discredit at all to Fulham. I think Mitrovic he was the man of the match in my opinion. Really, really shone bright. I definitely think they'll cause a lot of teams problem this year, especially with how clinical and just trying to kill games. And obviously the confidence that they have taking the lead this early on. I definitely think it surprised a lot of people, and I think teams will have caution going in to play them.
I think it's one of those that I was asking myself after the game. It's like, is that a performance that Fulham can keep up all season? Is that the standard of Fulham's team this season, or is it the occasion? They've just been promoted. It's at home. The crowd is as good as Craven Cottage is gonna be. No disrespect to them. Against Liverpool, a massive team. Had they came up and been away to West Ham, or maybe not West Ham, that's the London derby, being away to Southampton, you know what I mean? Would they've played as well there? I mean, again, no disrespect to Fulham, they played amazing on the day, but you do get those first day flukes, as they were. And I think that Jordan Henderson shot on the 95th minute where he hits the bar, that's 3 inches low and it goes in. I think we're having a very different.
I think Mitrovic had really good delivery throughout the entire game. Is it Pereira who used to play for Man U?
Yeah, Pereira.
Looked like he had good quality. I mean, mid-20s.
No,
I think he's clearly established as a Premier League player, and I think that link-up will become more crucial towards Fulham's success throughout the entire season. Obviously, getting the deliveries into him because he is their star man as such. So yeah, once again, very similar to the Arsenal Palace match. I think that Fulham have a lot to take away. Definitely got to be proud of the performance today. 2-2, a point start the season against.
It's a very good game for Fulham. It's a very good point. I think if that Henderson goal goes in, we're having the same conversation about Fulham, really, aren't we? We're saying they give a good effort, it was a good performance, and then the Liverpool angle's more. They played badly and won, which is the mark of champions. I mean, it's what Klopp said after the game. Klopp basically said, we played absolutely terribly, but at least we got a point.
Yeah, I mean, just as a reflection on the game, just to put it out, standpoint, Liverpool had 67% possession as opposed to 33, and they strung 613 passes compared to Fulham's 290. So, if you want to call it a bad day, it all depends on how you look at it. I think as opposed to what we used to seeing, definitely, but you're going to have them games, and 2-2 is always a bit more of a positive note to start the season than getting beat away, I'd say.
It's better than but if you're Liverpool and the last season's every single point makes the difference, you look at Fulham, newly promoted side, you think, right, that's 3 points nailed on, and more fool Liverpool, I suppose. Right.
Perhaps they'll become to regret that in the latter of the season. Who knows?
I think it might be one of them. Right, I think we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be talking about sort of the Premier League, the big stories from over the summer, and we'll see where it goes from there. And we're back on that quick break. So I think now we're going to talk about sort of the stories over the summer, just a bit more, it's the first day of the Premier League. Let's talk about the Premier League. So Tom, you've got here as your first note, is Ronaldo detrimental to Manchester United? It was the story last season. It's the story this season. What's your thoughts on the matter?
I think this is just a bit more of a vague comment as such. It's obviously recent transfer news that we've seen, with him stated that he wasn't happy at Man United. I know he's obviously went through difficult spells recently, which could play a factor contributing to that. But yeah, is Ronaldo detrimental to United? I think from a standpoint, it really can fall into two arguments. I think from one side of it, from Ten Hag's point of view, is who's going to replace him. He's got 25 goals last year, really, really good contributor to the squad. And I would say personally that he was, they did have besides having a poor season, I feel like he was still their best player. Do I feel he's the best player in the world currently? No.
No, I don't.
But I feel like he's going to be crucial to whether Ten Hag thinks, bloody hell, this kid can save my job as such, Or alternatively, is he detrimental because of his status and his like almost legendary sense at the club? There's been recent discussion of him being bigger than the club.
I think,
like obviously when Rooney was rumoured to be leaving under Alex Ferguson's reign. Obviously, as we know, he went on to stay. But that relationship with the manager, I think that's got to be crucial. And Ten Hag must be disappointed. I think, on one standpoint, yes, he can keep a player who can contribute 20 goals, despite actually scoring more goals prior to him arriving at Man United. I think that is, questionable. But yeah, does it make the manager look spineless? I'd like to say. I don't know.
I feel like it's a difficult one for Ten Hag because even take all the tactical side out of it, right? You come into this club, you've got Cristiano Ronaldo, the biggest footballing superstar in the world. I think you can talk about who's a better footballer, him or Messi. The biggest superstar in world football is probably by quite a distance Ronaldo. I don't think since the days of sort of Ronaldinho and that type, Wayne Rooney, that type of player, that you've got sort of a footballer who also is a massive world celebrity. You think your David Beckham's that type of player. And you're coming in a new manager to a squad that's been underperforming for years. You're going to have to, change the mentality of the club. You've got to change the tactical style. You've got to stamp your authority on that dressing room because, after Ralph Rangnick's reign at Man United, where, it was very much, you could tell he didn't have the full control of the dressing room. Stuff was coming out.
Oh God,
leaks,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And Ten Hag's job now is to come in, put a stop to all that, get control of that, and then you've got Ronaldo. A lot of this dressing rooms, especially younger players, were looking up to him, coming up as footballers. He's Cristiano, he's Ronaldo. So how do you put him on? So it was hard anyway, right? But now Ronaldo is publicly coming out and saying, "I want to leave for Champions League football. I'm not happy here." It makes that job so much harder. Even earlier at the that pre-season friendly last Sunday, just stuff like that. And how do you discipline Ronaldo, right? You don't play him. Yeah, you get stick from the fans for not playing Ronaldo. You get more discontent amongst the squad. But so if it was any other player, he would have been shifted on by now, right? Look at Lingard. He was kicking
God.
up a fuss, he didn't want to leave. He's went Nottingham Forest. He's gone. But Ronaldo, and he wants Champions League. Where does he go?
I think that's really the question that falls predominantly on Ronaldo's side as well, and especially his agent. Wants to play Champions League. It wasn't in his clause in his contract, so I think there's got to be some questions on his side as well. But I think to really understand the insight of this situation that obviously Ronaldo's found himself in is you've got to look at managers in very similar situations. I mean, you look at Pep when he first came to Manchester City.
Yeah.
Joe Hart was gone. Even Barcelona, Ronaldinho was gone. He really stamped his authority in, and laid foundation within that dressing room. So there was mutual respect between the players. And at Man United, as everyone knows, are definitely going through a transitioning phase, and it does kind of leave them on a fence. Who else are they going to play? Rashford. They don't really have that out-and-out striker. I feel like a lot of Premier League clubs have, so I feel like they are kind of obliged to feeding his ego a little bit and keeping him happy and thinking, could he keep us in a job for another 6 to 12 months?
I don't think Ten Hag's got to be too worried about his job security at the moment. But when you talk about if you're asking the question, is Ronaldo detrimental to Manchester United? I think you can split that into two halves. You've got the mental side, the atmosphere around the club, and I think the answer there is definitely yes. Because when Ronaldo's unhappy, yeah, everyone's got to be unhappy because he's been mega successful. But he's always had that little petulant streak in him since he's that little teenager coming doing the step overs, getting kicked, and it's that wink after getting Rooney sent off for Portugal. That side of Ronaldo, which I think everyone enjoys.
It's just his competitive edge, isn't it? It's part of his game.
He wants to be the best, and you're not. You can't be Ronaldo playing the Europa League. You know what I mean? So I think detrimental to the club's atmosphere if he's unhappy, then yeah. Tactically, it's a different question. You've got 25 goals, assists last season. You can't replace that.
Yeah, but you are kind of on a thread as such, on a string. I mean, you look what he did for Solskjaer. Walked out. What was it, about 60th minute? Don't quote us on this, but I think it was during an Everton game. That really undermined him and put him in a really compromising position. I feel.
It was.
So Ten Hag really has to learn from these, and because of the club is in such an unstable position at the moment. Let's not forget, if you're a Man United fan, if Ronaldo leaves, the club's not going to fold overnight. You'll continue to, improve over the next couple of years.
Yeah, Ronaldo.
Will it be felt immediately? Yes. But the question I think everyone's thinking at the moment is long term. Is he beneficial? Is he crucial to the future success of Man United? I really don't think so.
If you look at Ten Hag's system as well, it's that famous sort of Dutch system, that high press, the quick passing. Ronaldo isn't that player. And 5 years ago, right, he could be making those runs. He could be, he's still absolutely prime athlete, right? But you can't do that for 90 minutes, 38 games a season, 40 plus if you involve the cups and the Europa League. You can't do that. He's very much a static poacher sort of striker now. And does that fit in Ten Hag's system? Probably not. So again, look at Martial in pre-season. He was absolutely doing bits, I think.
But he's injured.
Yeah.
So it's where did he go from here? It's let's not write Ronaldo off. I think he's an absolutely clinical, as everyone knows, one of the best players of all time. But how many times have we seen Ronaldo pull them back in the Champions League or the Europa or whatnot, scoring really crucial goals? But in a team that's transitioning, in a transitioning phase where they're trying to bring new talent and finding a new system, does a 30-odd-year-old player, really gel into that? I don't know.
I think we've said it before. I think if it was any other player other than Ronaldo, he'd be out the door by now.
I think all I've got to say on the matter is, I feel like he's really going to sour, his status at the club, and obviously from what he remembers from what we remember watching growing up,
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like
he really wants to tread carefully.
Take our club, take Sunderland. Last season with Jermaine Defoe coming back, an absolute wayside hero. Come back in last season. I remember the night that it got announced late at night. We had bloody Wee Philly leaking it on Twitter. It was one of the best nights on Sunderland Twitter ever. It was class that night. But then, and there was so much joy.
But it soon turned to disappointment.
And then, okay, you know what it is, right? If he couldn't hack it genuinely, right, then fair enough, right? I could get that. But it's when he it looked like he gave up, and then it was all right. No one really had too much to say. And then that interview with Kane a month or two after, where he said, I feel like I could go now. And it's sort of like, well, what was that?
Yeah, that was a very sour comment.
And I think it's spoilt the cherishment that we have of Defoe and Wayside. And I think
it happens. I don't think we have to dwell on it as such. It's in the past.
Yeah, I'm just sort of comparing it to United, the United Ronaldo situation. I think obviously Ronaldo done so much for that club and he's went on to be so much more successful than Jermaine Defoe coming back to League One Sunderland.
Questionable.
So it's sort of like,
but can Ronaldo score a volley
against them
on the 45th minute? Can he do it on a cold, rainy night
in Sunderland
on the River Wear? I don't think so.
No,
Suey.
I do. He's had some absolutely unbelievable performances against us. Oh well. I think just staying with the United thing here. I mean, you're talking about the transitional phase, and I feel like they've been in a transitional phase since about 2014. And it's you know we've got what do United have to adopt to begin competing for the Premier League in the next 2 to 3 years, and I feel like we'll touch quite briefly on this because we've went on about United for about 10 minutes now. But we'll what do they have to do? I think we said before they've got to change the attitude around the club. They've got to get themselves winning again. They've got to get that old Manchester United sort of right. We will win and we'll not accept a draw sort of mentality back. We've got to get all that.
Hello, hello.
Oh yeah, I heard you.
Sorry, mate, bugged out.
That's fine. I'm just saying, what do United have to do to, begin competing again? And we'll just touch upon this matter quite briefly because we've spoke about United quite a lot. And I think they've just got to get that winning mentality back that they had. I think they've got a decent enough squad. I don't think a couple more signings across 2-3 years, definitely. And then I think they've got to get that mentality back. Because commercially and the fan back, they're always going to have that, and they're not going to lose that. I just think it's the attitude they've got the right to. I think Ten Hag's the right manager for them. He's up and coming. He's one of the most exciting managers in the world. He's had success upon success with Ajax. I think really starting with that Champions League run he had, we got the semi-final.
Yeah, it's purely confidence. I feel like they've got to find the feet and try and get through this transition period. Say the Ronaldo thing is still ongoing, but we'll find out the outcome soon.
Shall we move on from Manchester United, because we've spoke at length about them? We'll move on to some predictions about tomorrow's game. So tomorrow, Manchester United versus Brighton. What do you think?
I think Ronaldo will come on in the 60th minute and score a hat-trick.
I disagree. I think this will be very close. I think Brighton are a team that excite me. They ran very well. They've got one of the best coaches in the league in Graham Potter, I think. And it's a game that if it gets 50-60 minutes in and it's still very tight. Brighton humiliated Man United last season. I think it's one of those games where if it gets to 50-60 minutes in and Old Trafford starts to turn and Brighton get a good chance and finish and it's 1-0, then it could very quickly become very toxic.
I mean, if you're a Brighton fan, I believe you're rubbing your hands together at an opening game like this because of the how unstable and vulnerable Man United are at the moment. I feel like it could be a good win to get them.
Yeah, and we've managed to talk
starting with the season.
We've managed to talk about Manchester United as well for nearly 15 minutes, and not even mention the whole Frankie De Jong saga.
Oh.
But I think that's a story for a different day. I'm not ready to get into Barcelona's finances just yet.
No.
Right,
that's a deep conversation.
It's a deep dive. I think the United Brighton game, I think it'll be quite close. I think if United get a goal the first 15 minutes, I think it'll be routine 2-0, 3-1 sort of win. But if not, if Brighton hold firm, I think it could be quite difficult for them. That's it on Man United. We're not talking about them anymore.
And to quote Michael Owen, whoever scores the most goals will probably win the game.
Thanks, Michael. What else have we got tomorrow on Sunday? We've got Leicester versus Brentford. Two teams that seem to be in very different trajectories at the minute. Leicester.
I feel like I'm edging Brentford. Purely from a Leicester standpoint and how poorly they have played.
Look, Leicester are a team that worry me. When you see a team have a very poor run of form at the back end of the season, but it sort of goes under the radar because they're doing all right the first half, and then that poor form follows into the second season, and then they slip down the table, and then you know what I mean? It's one of them where I worry for them, and they've lost a lot of good players now. Kasper Schmeichel's just went. They've got a lot of injuries. Very, very bare at them. They've got a lot of injuries. And
I feel like they are like almost prior to a transitioning period. I feel like it's definitely going to take over soon. I think it needs to take over. They're just purely inconsistent. I feel they had a great opening start of the season and kind of died off towards the end of it, which obviously is concerning.
I genuinely think Leicester might be in risk of going down this season because they could be off to a poor start, and then we don't have that Christmas period anymore where you've got a lot of games and you can get a lot of points put together on the board quickly. I think because of the break for the World Cup, I think you've got that Leicester particularly going to have a lot of players coming back from the World Cup, which that depends where their headspace is going to be. So I think.
Let's
I
not
think
forget
Leicester are
Brendan
running right
Rodgers
now.
literally made the entire Leicester squad climb a mountain recently.
I did not know that. Which mountain was it? Brownie points.
Mont Blanc.
Mont Blanc.
Mont Blanc. It was indeed. Yes.
Very good. That's a mountain fact of the day from Tom there. Brentford, though. Brentford, I think they had a very solid season last season coming up in the Premier League. Brentford were a club that run absolutely impeccably. Very much statistic based. Look at signings with low value purchase wise and then high potential to
I mean,
sell.
they're still linked to Damgard.
Damsgaard, yeah, that'll be an absolutely. If they sign him,
Real quality.
I think that'll be my sign of the summer. I think it's rumoured to be about 15 million at the minute as well, and that could be a very good signing for Brentford. I think that's, it's almost a like for like replacement for Ericsson. Beyond.
I mean,
the fact
from what
that they're both Danish.
I've rumoured to hear, he's going through his medical, so it's looking promising for them. I feel that if they can secure him, then it definitely rejuvenates the squad.
Is that from like a source close to you, or is it from the source of Twitter?
It is a source from Twitter, but it's quite a reputable source.
Go on, shout them out.
No, I'm not naming names.
I mean, name names, because if it's a reputable source, we can say, "Oh, this journalistic organisation is saying that."
Rumored to be 6 figures.
Who's the source, Tom? Who's the source?
Give me the source.
Where's the source? Right, we're moving on. Well, we're moving on from Damsgaard. I want to talk a bit more about Brentford because I feel like they're on the up and I feel like they're going to have a good season this season. I think as long as they keep Ivan Toney, they've got a very good, solid squad. Vitaly Yanya as well. He's a very good centre-back, very versatile. And I feel like they're going to have a very good season. I fancy Brentford to win against Leicester. I'm going to say, I think probably a routine 2-0 for Brentford. Really,
I'm going to say 2-1.
2-1.
Yep.
Right, and then we come to the big game on Super Sunday. We've got West Ham. They host Manchester City at home, and if you're West Ham, you probably couldn't have a tougher start to the season.
But let's not forget the good season that they did have last year. So I think there's
what
it's still looking promising.
What do you think about this game? I'll let you speak about it.
I feel like City have really got to take authority and established authority, reflected on obviously Liverpool's game because they will have seen it.
One game in, and we're already talking about Manchester City and Liverpool, getting one over each other. I love it.
Oh god, but we've talked a lot recently about does it boil down to the latter of the season and the Champions League qualifying and how exhausting the seasons can get in the final stretch of it. So I feel like getting some good points on the board. I
think
establishing a good win. I feel like it's crucial, and I feel like they've really got to rise to the occasion. I'm going to say 3-1 City.
See, I think what was it last season? West Ham beat City 3-2, and then it was 2-2 at the London Stadium. Excuse me. So I don't know. It's a tricky on this one. I mean, West Ham, they've had a good transfer window. They haven't lost any of the big players. Declan Rice was, rumoured at the start of the window. That nothing's really came to fruition there. They've signed Maxwell Cornet from Burnley today. He'll obviously not be ready to play for tomorrow, but it's a good signing. I think if any of the teams that are going to sort of break in and establish the sort of top six, I think it's at the minute. I think West Ham is probably the only real one that has the shout for me. I think Newcastle, once the money gets through and the season they're getting, I think unfortunately they will be up there.
I feel like,
but I think West Ham
as a West Ham, you've really got to build on the foundation that they set in stone last season. I feel like they've really got to transverse this into the season. They played some cracking football. They're really competitive, especially in the top half. I'd like to see them go for it again.
Definitely. I mean, I know they've got the disappointment as well of the Europa League last season. I think semi-finals they got knocked out of.
I feel like it's a credit to them because I feel like it's more of a credit of what's to come and what they can achieve.
I think
Mixing with the big boys, that sort of thing.
the thing is, I think as you say, it's important for them not to take a step back. I mean, if you look at Leicester, the past few seasons, fifth, seventh, and then last season really fallen away. I don't think West Ham, just through the size of the club and sort of the quality of the squad that they have, I think aren't as likely to fall away as much. But then you look at like Wolves with their 2 7th place finishes, and then last season I think it was 14th. Don't quote me on that.
I mean, when we talk about Leicester and compare them as such, I feel like everyone remembers that infamous Leicester season that they had, obviously when Jamie Vardy went on to break records, and obviously they lifted the league title. But I feel like they were at peak, whereas I feel like when we're comparing it to West Ham, I feel like they are really building like a really solid team. It is. I feel like they've gone through that transitioning period. Declan Rice, not just for England but for West Ham, he's such a rock solid player.
I think he's better for West Ham, to be fair, than he is for England. But again, that's a different debate for probably closer to the World Cup. I think it's a tricky one. I think West Ham definitely have the ability to disrupt the top 6. I think in West Ham and a David Moyes, if you want a team that's going to be hard to beat and resolute, but also has that capacity to go forward and really do some damage, I think.
But transitioning is, I'd like to say it's the key topic of discussion today, because let's not forget Haaland and obviously Sterling going to Chelsea. I feel like they're going through a bit of a transition up front, and I feel like it's going to take perhaps a couple of weeks to. You can definitely see Haaland was still trying to find his feet, quite literally, but I think once he gets going, he's going to be unstoppable.
I think I watched the game against Liverpool in the Community Shield, and the thing that really struck me was City's fullbacks. Yes, they always push up and step in the midfield, but I just feel like I can't tell whether it was Liverpool's wingers exploiting that, or Man City's defenders allowing that unintentionally. That sort of really let them. And I think West Ham, in players like Jared Bowen, very much have the ability to do the same sort of thing. I mean, I've imagined Pep will, he's a better tactical manager than I am. We'll sort that.
City have got some absolutely rock solid centre backs. We talk Stones, Diaz. We've got some real quality there, but I feel like they do have elements of weaknesses in certain aspects of the game that teams, if anyone, West Ham could probably exploit.
That's what I feel. I think other than probably Tottenham and Liverpool, I think West Ham the only other team that I would sort of think, I could see them beating City at home, first game of the season. I think it might be close. I'm going to go 2-2.
2-2?
2-2. Go on, put a score on it.
3-1.
3-1.
Still 3-1. 3-1. Still 3-1 City. Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll take another quick break there. Tom will find some HP sauce, and then we'll talk about our Premier League predictions. See you in a minute. And we're back from that break. And during that break, hot off the presses, was it Yannick Vestergaard from?
It was to Fulham.
What's he? Oh, where does he play for?
Leicester. Plays for Leicester.
Yeah, that is a very good signing, and that is even more worrying for Leicester, I think.
That was reported from Football Insider, and
they confirmed, or?
Yes, it's confirmed. He's 30, so. He's a very experienced defender.
That's a good sign for Fulham.
15 million. Now I feel like that's a very, very good deal. He performed brilliantly at the Euros for Denmark. Really solid.
That's a good deal for Fulham. I think you've got an experienced Premier League proven centre back. 15.
He's having 82 games in top flight English football, so he's definitely got experience.
Good signing.
Especially for Fulham.
And remember, you probably didn't hear it here first, but we spoke about it first. So. Moving on
swiftly on
to our Premier League predictions with actual numbers and names, not just we think this is going to happen. So for the top 6, I've got in first place. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll discuss first to second, third to fifth, and then we'll see who's making up 6th, getting that last Europa League spot. So in first place, I've got Liverpool over Manchester City in second. And I just feel like with Man City slightly changing the tactics, being in a slightly transitional phase, I just feel like granted, Liverpool had a poor result today, but I feel like they'll just have the edge over them, and I think it will be close again. I don't think it will be as close in terms of those two. I don't think it'll be as much as a gap between the top two and the rest of the league. I think the other teams seem to be a lot more improved. I think it will be up. I think Liverpool and Man City will probably lose a few more games as well, particularly against your Spurs, your Arsenals, your Chelsea. I just think the quality of the league is so high at the minute.
It's extremely competitive.
I just think Liverpool. I just fancy them to win it more. A lot of their players aren't going to the World Cup compared to City. I know Haaland isn't obviously for City, but I think other than that, there's no real standout player that isn't going to the World Cup. Mahrez, I don't think Algeria qualified.
No.
So it's what I mean. Whereas Liverpool, Diaz isn't going. Salah isn't going. Robson isn't going. There's a lot of players that are going to have a nice sort of chance to just be nicely well rested, particularly after Liverpool's season last season. That's why I've got them slightly ahead.
Yeah, when you think about it, there's actually not a lot of Liverpool players who are actually going to the World Cup.
Van Dijk,
like you said, mentioned Robertson, Van Dijk, Matip.
yeah, they're all good.
Obviously Salah, Diaz.
What about you? Do you agree with that as a top two, or do you
I'm going to stick with my guns and go with City.
You go with
I feel
City?
like, as we've talked about a lot recently, the distribution of goals throughout the entire team of City, I think, really highlights how good they are. I feel like they're not as reliant on two or three players, digging them out the deep sometimes. As I feel like Liverpool, if we can take anything from today's game, I felt lacked a lot in the midfield. Whereas I feel like that's where City really excels. And obviously with the recent addition of Haaland, I feel like once he gets going,
Yeah, no, I think
I feel like it's goals galore already, and I feel like you add Haaland into the mix.
I don't feel.
But let's not forget how underappreciated Raheem Sterling was. Cracking player, and I feel like he's definitely going to be a miss.
Yeah.
Likewise to Liverpool, obviously with City's new sign, I feel like there's going to be a bit of a dynamic shift and a bit of a transitioning period for them to try and
I think it's an easy
really cement the style. But I've purely got to go with City just based on the talent that they've got in depth throughout the squad.
Yeah, no,
I feel like they can really complement each other, and each bring something different to the game. So
yeah, no.
purely on quality, I'd say.
I wouldn't disagree with anyone that thought City over Liverpool or Liverpool over City. I mean, the last few seasons, it's practically been a toss-up of, who wins the game against each other, and injuries. Yeah. Other than that, there really isn't a lot to split them. It's almost as like the really, really, really good teams who have had world-class managers there for 5, 6, 7 seasons now.
I mean, like, even when we reflect really on the back end of last season, I think the winner changed 3 times within 20 minutes of the final game. So it shows how down to the wire this is becoming. But game, as we mentioned, I feel like the top 2 teams, they won't be as out of sight. The likes of Spurs and Arsenal, and Chelsea. Who knows?
God knows. Well, speaking of, I was going to say Nuno, but he doesn't manage Spurs anymore. Speaking of the rest of the top 6, 3rd to 5th, what do you reckon? I'll let you go first on this one.
I'm slightly on the fence still about Spurs and Arsenal, but after the 4-1 game I've seen today, I feel like Spurs are really just going to excel.
I didn't have another chance to watch that game yet.
Not discredit Arsenal, performed excellent today, but there was 4 different players on Spurs' score sheet, and it felt like they could have got at least another 2.
Different quality of opposition, though, surely.
So yeah, I'm going to go Spurs,
I've got
and
Spurs.
Then Arsenal 3rd and 4th.
That's what I've got as well, actually, to be fair. I think Spurs, the signings they made, the manager that they've got, they do look very good. I think they've got probably arguably the best player in the league in Harry Kane, in just terms of the goals and assists that he brings. I think they've got the most underappreciated player in the league, or underrated, in Heung-min Son. I think Kulichevsky was a really good bit of business. I think Perisic is a good
Mm-hmm.
season. Bentancur, they've got a solid squad now.
Yeah, they
I
looked
think
really solid defensively today as
I
well. I
think
mean,
barring, and I think say there was a tragedy at Man City and Liverpool, I think Spurs could get amongst the mix. I think they'll be close for a lot of the season, and then towards the end, I think Liverpool and City will pull away. I think
obviously,
Arsenal
as we
will be
discussed with
quite close as
Liverpool
well.
and City, do you know how we're coming down to obviously the games they play against each other and
Yeah.
how crucial those points are to going on to win the league? I feel like it's kind of going to be a very similar scenario to Spurs and Arsenal. I feel like, who can get the edge, who can get the 3 points, critical mid-season win. I feel like it's going to give them more soundness. But I'm just very, very closely edging Spurs off gut instinct.
I think I am. I just think Conte has that winning edge over Arteta. I rate Arteta as a manager. I really do. I just think Spurs.
Currently, yes. Currently, I'd agree.
I think Spurs just have a little bit more steel to them in a way. I don't think Spurs are as likely to collapse in games. So weirdly, Spurs are a bit less Spursy than Arsenal now.
Yeah, and I mean, they've spent some hell of money this season.
They have.
I think most in the Prem.
They have spent a lot. Not net mind, to be fair.
There's some
Moving on
cracking
then.
signings, so.
So if we've got Arsenal in 4th and Spurs in 3rd, that means we've left Chelsea and Manchester United out of the Champions League places, which probably sounds a bit unthinkable when you consider the money and the squad that Chelsea have. I've got Chelsea in 5th and Manchester United in 6th. I think we'll start with Man U first. Briefly, we talked about them a lot. I just don't think they're going to be quite there. I think they'll get the results against the teams below them, but I don't think they're likely to win a game against the teams above them there.
Yeah, just to start, I really don't think it'll be the teams above them that they'll have to be competing with. I think it's the soundness of the squad that we've recently discussed and the confidence that they have currently that they can kind of have them eggshells.
Yeah, definitely.
Playing teams lower down the league, I feel like that can really leave them a bit compromised. I think they're going to really struggle to score goals, and obviously it's dependent upon Ronaldo's status at the club. But regardless of Rashford, I feel like they haven't got a lot of players that possess good quality and can really finish games like Chelsea and Arsenal have.
So Chelsea in 5th. Chelsea is a weird one for me because they've spent a lot of money and they've had a very good transfer window. Defensively, they're very solid, but going forward, they're still a little bit not convincing. And for all the money they've spent, right, going into the transfer window there, end of last season, that's probably how I would have described Chelsea anyway. I know they had to replace Rudiger and Christensen, and I think they've replaced them very well. But I don't think they've improved the squad. I think they've just kept it really at the same standard. I think.
Yeah, I mean Rudiger was a cracking centre half for Chelsea, one of the best in the leagues in my opinion.
I mean, just before starting this podcast as well, though. I mean, I was watching the Chelsea Everton game, where they beat them 1-0, but it was a very it's a Everton side that are there looking to be in trouble. They had a very poor end last season, and they didn't have the recognised striker out. It was a very disrupted squad from Everton, and they won 1-0, but it wasn't like a 1-0 calm. It was Everton made them work. No, it wasn't a convincing 1-0, and I just think. Yes, Chelsea are solid at the back, and that's why I've got them in 5th and not 6th. I just think there'll be games where there'll be, 1-1, 2-1, and they'll not get those 3-1s, 4-1s, and those are the games that if they could have took the chances, then they would have been. But I just don't think they will. I think Sterling's a cracking bit of business. I think he's an upgrade on all the strikers or forwards that they have at the club. He's an upgrade.
I mean, you kind of not talk about the recent departure of Lukaku. I feel like from a financial aspect, obviously the takeover, they are still, on a learning curve, I'd say. But I definitely agree with you. Getting them 2-0, 3-0, 4-1 type of wins. I feel like they're very Chelsea-esque, and that might sound a bit weird.
I don't think they're going to get them this season. I just don't.
They've never really, especially in recent years, become a convincing side as such.
I mean, you
I feel
talk
like on the day they're great. I feel
Mhm,
like it's very momentum driven. They can have cracking games, but then very bang average games, as opposed to teams competing for the top 2 or 3. I feel like
yeah.
even on days like today where Liverpool weren't on the finest form, they can still deliver. Whereas I feel like Chelsea sometimes struggle to do that.
Yeah, I think if Chelsea play that game against Fulham today, they lose, whereas Liverpool nick the draw.
Yeah.
We talk about United being a team in transition, right? If you look at Chelsea, right, they had Maurizio Sarri, he sacked.
Hmm.
Lampard, he got sacked. Then I've got Tuchel in. All very different styles of play, and they've not had a chance to really settle over a course of 2-3 seasons. If you look at what the best clubs have done, right? Look at Liverpool. They give Klopp a lot of time to work. Yes, City were at the point, but again, Guardiola had 4, 5, 6 seasons now to work and really make that squad their own, and they're absolutely unbeatable now. Look at Arsenal. I think it's a slightly shorter time frame, but 3 years. Arteta's been there. I think the squad's finally becoming his. They've got the tactics there. Whereas Chelsea, they've not had a manager for more than 2 years. I don't think since Conte, and I think even only lasted 2.5. I mean, I know that's a Chelsea style, and I know it's worked for them in the past. The most successful club in England, certainly in the 2010s. I just feel like they're constantly in transition. I think this is the time that's gonna. It might just stick for them. I think where the transitional period will sort of stick in the way they did with Man United. Not,
I mean, you can definitely tell that it's becoming a bit stagnant. I mean, I was watching a recent video of Pep, and he was saying that Thomas Tuchel is one of his most admired managers, and I feel like
I rate Tuchel. He's a great.
From what we can look back on of the managers they've had, in the recent past, I think that if anyone's going to take them on, I think it's definitely going to be himself. But I feel like he's, like you said, they haven't really had that time to solidify the squad and just really understand his players. I mean, Timo Werner, I think he's an absolute cracking player, but it's very dependent.
Yeah,
he's not as consistent as I probably know he can be. I think the longer he stays with the squad, I feel like the better understanding he'll have. And you'd like to see them going to compete for Champions Leagues and whatnot and go far and do well.
It's Chelsea. I don't really care who's winning the Champions League. I've got slight preferences, but I'm not like yay Chelsea.
No, but you'd like to be competitive with Spurs and Arsenal. Within the mix. You really don't want that that divide between the top teams. You want it to be competitive. You want them to be.
I don't think we'll get to the high 90s this season. I think most clubs will be sort of low 90s to high 80s in that top 3, 4. I think Chelsea might be dropping in sort of the sort of high 70s sort of zone in terms of points tally, but I definitely think the top 6 will be closer.
Yeah, and I mean, like we talked about, for a lot of teams going through a transition phase, I feel like Chelsea are really at that building stage now where they've really got to find some confidence.
But there shouldn't be, is the point. That's my point.
No.
I think if Tuchel gets the end of the season, which you never know with Chelsea, right? If he gets the end of this season, and they've won, I don't know, if they've won the FA Cup and had a really good run in the Champions League or something like that, then I feel like he'll be alright in safety's job. And that summer, I think obviously the new owners came in this summer. He's fired a lot of money at the wall. We'll see how much of it sticks. Then we'll go from there. But I think that's the top 6 quite nicely rounded off.
So relegation aspects. Moving on, dropping to the bottom of the table.
Bottom of the table, and the actual interesting bit, which everyone knows is the best bit. It's the peril. All right, you've won the league. You've got Champions League. Fantastic. Relegation. Oh well, this is a Sunderland podcast. We know what relegation battles are about. It's all we've had.
We've been here.
Now these are tense. These are real stuff on the line. You lose the title. It's pat. You go again next season. You get relegated. Oh, very bad. So
just as competitive at the bottom half of the table, I mean, we've got written down here Southampton, Bournemouth, teams like Leicester, like we've recently discussed. You are looking at the teams around you and trying to compete on a match by match basis. But I'll let you take this one away.
Well,
What is your predictions
I mean,
for
having just read
20th, 19th, 18th,
read
and
them
why?
out, but in no particular order, I'm going to go
Remote.
in 20th, despite winning against Villa today. And to be fair, I did make this before that match finished. I've got Bournemouth in 20th. I don't rate the squad. There's, some of the teams that have went up have made signings where I'm like, yeah, that's good. Bournemouth seem to have came up, not made that many great signings, and I think they will be swiftly relegated again, I'm afraid. I quite like Bournemouth as a club. I like to see little Bournemouth do well. I don't think they will. I don't think it'll be like Norwich last season, where they're relegated by.
It was written off before, yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it will be quite close, but I think Bournemouth will come in bottom. In 19th, I've got Southampton. There's worrying signs about a squad for a couple of seasons, and then they just have a no fuss relegation in 19th. Think Sunderland. Think Burnley last season. Think what Everton were like sort of last season, really float.
Touch and go. Yeah.
I think Southampton. What will happen with Southampton? They're getting a poor run of form. They'll have another heavy defeat. I don't think another 9-0. I think that's ridiculous. But I think they'll get washed.
Did you see them football conspiracy theories? And I've read a lot of them, and some of them are like quite.
No, but you've just took this podcast in a direction I was hoping it would go. Do tell me more about some football conspiracy theories.
So this is just like vague, generic.
Right, it's tinfoil hat time.
There's like aspects of evidence to it, but not as such. It's like I feel like Southampton always get beat 6-1 every year. I feel like Stoke always play on a Wednesday night.
Oh, yep, I know what you mean. Now, Southampton always get beat 3-1. Always get beat 3-1 but finish 16th. But I think Southampton.
I like Bournemouth always play at home as well.
Yeah, I've never seen Bournemouth play away. Right, this might be a good episode for later on. But Southampton 19th, they just worry me. I think they'll have another heavy defeat this season. I think Hasenhüttl will get the sack off the back of that. I think he was lucky to be in the job after 2 9-0s, to be perfectly honest. I rate him as a coach. He's come from the Red Bull system. They play some decent stuff, but I just think the squad, it's stagnated. They haven't made that many, improvements in terms of signing, and I just think they'll be in a poor run of form. I think the board might be a little bit trigger happy on the manager, and then I don't think they'll get the right replacement in. There's not a lot of managers available at the minute. And then I think they'll slide down the league and they'll get relegated off the back of that, and I hope it doesn't. Southampton are a good club. They're a great club. They're a club you want in the Premier League, but I think
I would probably have to agree. I feel like when you talk about teams like Southampton, Bournemouth, I feel like long term, from like a long term aspect, I don't think getting relegated would be hugely detrimental to them, because I feel like it would allow them to go through a bit of a rebuilding stage.
Yeah,
I feel like they are a bit out of the depth. And with Leicester in the mix, like we've talked about, it's all well and good accruing money and selling players, but if you're not going to replace them, you are going to get found out, because the quality is continuing to progress each and every season.
Yeah,
I feel like if you don't join them, you'll get left behind, and I feel like they don't have a huge amount of quality within the squad, so I feel like they'll definitely struggle. Southampton, Bournemouth for me personally is, I feel like, still up for debate, but Leicester, I can definitely see falling into the bottom 3.
Yeah. Well, I've got Leicester there in 17th, 18th. Leicester in the final relegation spot. That's where I've got them. I think they're light on the squad. I think they've been slipping the last couple of seasons, and I think they're the squad that will be, relegated on the final day. I think they'll be in it to the end, but I think they'll just go down, because you've got the other squads outside the top 6, right? You've got who's like completely safe from relegation. You've got West Ham, Newcastle. You've got, I think, Palace, who will probably chuck in that mix. Wolves, they don't particularly worry me.
Leeds.
I think Leeds might be thereabouts. I think.
I know what you mean. Teams like
Villa.
Teams like Villa, yeah,
The ones that you think,
Brighton.
right, they're not likely to be the teams that are on the upward trajectory. I think there's a big gap. There's a big gap between the teams that
Hmm.
are on the up, and then you've got the teams that have come up. Other than Bournemouth, you've got Nottingham Forest,
Forest.
who
I
will
think
be
Forest will
fine.
do all right this season.
I made some good signings, and
Hmm.
I think Fulham will be fine. I think they'll be steadily lower mid-table, and then there's a big gap, and then I think you've got the three teams that we mentioned: Everton, Leeds, and who else? Who haven't we mentioned? That's it. I think we've nailed a full 20, and if
I mean,
we've
just
cut
looking at
your
the table
cut, I'm
here,
sorry.
I know this sounds very generic, but
Mm.
looking at the table, there's not a lot of bad teams, if that makes sense.
No, there's not a lot of teams. It's quite a strong league this season, isn't it? I mean, who have we got?
That set in stone. You know, like Norwich last season. I know we did touch on it. It was kind of over before the song was even begun.
Mm.
But looking at this season, it's going to be just as competitive at the bottom half as it is at the top, in my opinion.
There's not.
It is stacked.
There's not a very weak. Nah, there really isn't a team where I'm like, there. There's not a lot of teams.
Do you know when
that are on the
when you look
down.
at when you look at the
Mhm.
table, pre-season, and you think, I can see them doing really poor, or yeah, definitely they're going to get relegated straight back down. I'm looking at this, and it's very unpredictable.
Well,
Aside from Southampton, which and Leicester in the mix at the bottom, it's very questionable, to be honest.
that's what it is. I struggled. I struggled to come up with who I think's going to get relegated because every team looks quite good, and I know it's the Premier League, but every team looks very good. Shall we move on from
But
relegation?
yeah, it's quite depressing.
As Sunderland fans,
We've encountered that a lot.
we've been twice or two. Anyway, it's not the point. It's done now. We're back in the championship. We've won today. So who teams? I mean, and biggest underperformer. I've got Leicester there. I think they will underperform. I think I don't need to go into any more depth than that. We've discussed Leicester quite nicely. Tom, who do you think is going to be your biggest underperformer this season in terms of a team?
Out and out, I'm probably just going to have to go with Southampton. I feel
Southampton.
like they just haven't. I feel like they just haven't got the quality
Mhm.
to really compete. And I feel like you get a bad run of spells or a bad couple of games, and I feel like just as much at the top half as the bottom, I feel like you can kind of be out of the league already before it's even begun. I feel
Yeah,
like you're constantly on the back foot if you're not getting off to a good start, and
and
I
it's a
just
bad
can't see
result
it.
for them today as well. 4-1.
Mm.
4-1 after taking the lead as well. So
Flop signing?
Flop signing. I've got Dwight McNeil from Burnley to Everton for 20 million. I think this is the worst signing
20 million.
that. This is one of the worst signings I've seen, and I've seen a few bad ones. He's not scored a. Allison has scored a Premier League goal, the goalkeeper, more recently than Dwight McNeil. For 20 million, he's really not going to
Yeah.
improve the Everton side. They're
It,
trying,
it, it put it puts the club in a very compromising position, and also a lot of pressure on him as well.
he's effectively the Richarlison replacement, and Dwight McNeil, he's good. There is a good player in this somewhere, and I do think he was stifled by Burnley's style of play in the system. But 20 million,
Yeah, I feel like if your
know,
intentions were to replace Richarlison, it's not McNeil like.
you can get a lot more for less. You know what I mean? Look at Brentford with Damsgaard.
I
50
mean, I
million.
feel like that really puts it into perspective. 15 million, 20 million. Don't get us wrong. I know he's 30, but it's what you see in the next couple of years out of these signings, and
And
will he go on to become good for them? I
Damsgaard's
really don't know.
a young up and coming winger as well. You know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
I just think that's a poor signing, and I know it's a flop this season, but I don't think anyone actually expects it to be successful.
Anyway, signing of the season.
On a much more positive note, who's your sign of the season? Who do you think so far?
I'm probably going to have to go with Nunez. I mean, yes, I know we've talked about and touched on a bit element of luck, but even in the preseason game and obviously getting some goals today, I think it's just really going to elevate his confidence. I feel like he'll gel really well with Salah, who are already formed a really competitive team. I feel like he just kind of adds that final piece to the puzzle.
I think we saw
Um,
that today. That shelling with Salah.
Oh, definitely, and I think he'll just go from strength to strength in the Klopp like a lot of players have.
No, Klopp has made some very average looking players, absolutely phenomenal, and so I'm very
Definitely.
excited.
What about
What
yourself?
he'll do. My sign of the season, I had Nunes, but I think Damsgaard. I know he hasn't played yet, and I know it's slightly risky, but I think that's a cracking signing for Brentford.
Mhm.
I think that's got the potential to be a very good signing. Who else? Just chuck some names about. I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, not just from a club perspective, but also from like an individual perspective. I feel like it'll really allow him to showcase what he can bring to the Premier League, and I think a lot of other clubs will be looking at him closely.
Definitely. I mean, again, that's sort of Brentford's Moneyball system. I think next year, season afterwards, that's a 50 million sign into a top six club. And I think that's the way Brentford probably look at it themselves. Other signings I
I think
thought
that
have been
I
quite
think that
good.
flows quite well onto the next question of surprise team. We've both got Brentford,
Both got
and
Brentford
obviously
as our surprise
if they
team.
can get the signing across the line, I think it puts them in really good stead.
Yeah, I listen. I'm not a Brentford fan. I know
Are you sure?
I've waxed lyrical about them. I just love the way that they run. The run, that the Moneyball style that they ran on. It's all based on statistics. The owners are
Hmm.
gambling statistic expert. They look at play. They basically they play Football Manager in real life, right? Which is why I love them so
Hey,
much.
if it's working for them, then it's
No,
working,
but it is. It's and they're in the new stadium. And, they're a very good club. They're a very likable club as well. They stand for a lot of good things as well. I think they could sort of be. I think they'll get top half this season, and I think they
And I
could
think what
deserve to.
a lot of other clubs, surrounding Brentford can learn from them is it's not purely on the pitch. I feel like what surrounds the club and embodies the club, like just purely from a financial aspect as well,
Definitely,
can traverse onto the pitch.
I feel like
And
I feel like that's the approach Sunderland that they're taking. A lot of the transfers are making
oh,
it
definitely.
statistics based. We're looking at young players who can develop and sort of build with the team. I think Brentford have took that role as well. They sort of pioneered that role really, and I think they're doing really well. Tom, give me a bold prediction for the season. Make it bold as you like, but don't use the one I've wrote down.
Are you sure?
Yes, because that's mine.
I think that Salah will be top scorer this season, and I think I was going to regret saying this. I think Haaland will be a little bit of a slight flop
Ooh,
to the beginning of the season. I feel like he'll be a slot for the first 5 to 10 games.
is that really a bold
I
prediction?
feel like a lot of fans will probably kind of evade the hype train a little bit
Mm,
and give him stick. 'Cause it is a completely different league to the Bundesliga and what he's used to in recent seasons.
mhm.
A bit more of the physicality, the pace of the game, the competitive edge that
But I mean,
a
Haaland.
cold night in Stoke can bring. But I feel like it'll take him a while to find his feet.
I don't think I agree with you in principle, but I don't think it'll be Haaland that's the problem because you talk about pace and power, and that's what Haaland's like. I feel it'll be Man City themselves, the style of play. They'll not play the ball into him quick enough. They'll be looking for that extra pass.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna really run for it and walk, and don't hold us to this, but I feel like he did miss a few chances in that Community Shield match that he probably could have scored.
I feel like you do that across the course of the season, though. I,
Do you know, and you just think,
yeah,
really, a player of your caliber should probably be putting that away. It didn't put him in good stead, but
Tom, I'm
who
loving
knows?
controversial opinions for engagement.
Give us a bold prediction,
You got one
Lewis.
already?
What do you think?
You all
Who's
got
getting
one.
sacked?
Who's getting sacked? Well, you've read my bold prediction. I think my bold prediction, and I like Leicester. Okay, I'm sorry, Leicester. If any Leicester fans are listening, I'm sorry because I've just whacked up on your club for about an
For
hour.
60 minutes.
Yeah, but I think Brendan
Basically, they're
Rodgers.
getting relegated and they're managerless.
Yeah, I think Brendan Rodgers will be the first manager to get the sack this season. I think they're on thin ice. Well, not to get the sack. I think he'll be the first manager to leave this season because I think he might walk away or mutual consent, that type
No,
of
I
thing.
agree. I
I
agree.
just Leicester, they're just the dark clouds at Leicester, and that's my bold prediction. A
I
manager
think it's kind of
retained in
overshadowed a bit.
trouble.
I think at Leicester though the problem is, or an element of the problem is, it's kind of overshadowed by the success they've had. And it's kind of been the downfall ever since.
It's hard. It's
Um,
hard not to look at Leicester as that plucky little club that won the Premier League, then the FA Cup, and that's not meant to sound patronising, even though it really did. But I just feel like there is that lack of ability in people to sort of think, oh, actually, no, not everything might be bright and rosy and Jamie Vardy's having a party at Leicester. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
I think Leicester could be in trouble this season. I hope they're not, but I think they could be. Right, final Premier League prediction. What's your shout for the Golden Boot?
Like I said, Salah. I think he
Salah.
can just not just create goals, but contribute to them and make some goals look so effortless. I think he's really cemented himself as a really top Premier League player. And I think with the addition of Nunes as well, I think it'll probably raise the bar a little bit slightly for him. Um, Made some really good signings in the top six. So yeah, I'm going to go with Salah for. I think he'll score well over 30 goals this season.
30 goals.
Hmm.
That's very strong. I disagree. I think Haaland will get the Golden Boot on the basis that I feel like
Really?
Salah and Nunes will sort of split the goals between them, whereas I think eventually all of it will go through Haaland.
I disagree,
Ooh,
purely based on the form that City have been in and how they distribute the goals throughout the entirety of the team. I feel like it's not going to be that almost immediate flip of a switch, whereas Haaland is, the primary focus of Man City, because I feel like that's not how they've played recently.
it's a different system though that they're playing. I think rather than distributing when playing without a striker, they're gonna a lot of the stuff is gonna go through Haaland.
I mean, let's not forget, Son. Son's still in the picture?
Kane. Originally, I had Kane, and then I thought Son, and then I thought Haaland, and I went with Big and went Haaland. I'm just quickly trying to get some top scorer odds on. That's what I'm typing away at here, just so we can see what the bookies think. Right, odds.
I think Nunes will probably be top.
Haaland.
I think Salah will be up there.
So, from most favourite going down, we've got Erling Haaland is the favourite. Mo Salah, second favourite. Kane, then Nunes, in third and fourth respectively. In fifth place, Gabriel Jesus. Sixth place, Heung-min Son. And then seventh is Ronaldo. I don't think that's too likely.
That's not viable. No.
And then Sterling, Vardy, Wilson, Kai Havertz, Diaz, Mitrovic. It then quite drops quite rapidly to people.
I think Wilson's probably his more favourite than Ronaldo. I mean, he scored a two.
Well, Ronaldo scored a hat trick tomorrow. That's what you predicted. So, to be fair, this list hasn't been updated because Benteke's still up there and he plays for DC United.
To conclude, what have we got to conclude, Lewis? Take it away.
What have we got to conclude? Well, Sunderland won today, 3-2 win. That's a good conclusion from the Wayside view. What else?
Really, really competitive game.
It really was.
Competitive game.
It was.
I feel like it really showed our character and the way that the club is moving.
I think it showed weaknesses in our squad. I think going forward we've got as good an attack in most.
I think we can give any team problems on the day.
Defense, but our central midfield, I don't know.
Right back.
Tactic, a right back and central midfield. I don't know. It's the tactical shape and how Bristol played against us today. I just feel like we need a little bit more steel, someone that can break up and keep the ball in centre midfield, like
a really good, holding, tall, 6'3" CDM.
What we need is what's he called from the seasons in the Prem? Oh God, what's he called? Not Kirchhoff. Yeah,
CDM.
Kirchhoff. Yeah,
Kirchhoff.
Yeah,
yes.
Jan Kirchhoff. That's who we need.
Yeah.
We need
God, he fit right in.
I think his hamstrings are beyond. I think they're now cheese strings.
Hamstrings are just still torn.
Bless him. What a player he was for us, though. And keep
Sunderland. Very positive notes today.
Sims, what a debut! 2 goals, sorry. And then a lovely Pritchard to Stewart for the win. I
feel like Pritchard's, his quality is really starting to shine through. I mean, that ball he put in from the left side, it was on a plate. On a plate,
I
yeah.
don't know if you've seen the video, but Luke O'Nien already started celebrating as Pritchard put the ball.
As the ball
Yeah,
was in the
he
air, I've
knows.
seen.
Very, very good. I think it was a good win. I think it was a game that we could have lost, especially 2-1. Well, I know 2-1 down, but we could have folded in ourselves.
I feel like we've become more bold in recent seasons. You know, you think back to down 2-1 away, to find that character within you, to have that confidence to not
really
just
managed
take
to
a
turn
point,
the
but to
game
really
around.
go on and try and turn a game around. I
Yeah.
feel like that's really showcased how much the team's obviously changed under Alec.
Definitely. And to finish up today, we'll finish with On This Day in Football. So, 6th of August, 1997. Well before me and Tom were born. We're that young. Former Sunderland manager and part-time fascist Paolo Di Canio was unveiled to Sheffield Wednesday fans with a wonderful image of him chucking in to a raw pizza. I don't know, PR in the 90s. What could he say, eh?
I wonder if it's dirty knees then too.
That's got to be one of the worst unveilings in history, right? I mean, I can't. Hang on, I can't pull the image up because I haven't got it.
I mean, if it was a nice pizza, I'd consider it, but it's not even a nice pizza.
So we're getting raw.
It's an
as the
Asda Stone
pizza.
bake.
It literally is.
It's still got the packaging on it.
They've taken out the packaging.
If you look in the
it's
distance,
just
you'd see one of the Asda.
It's just flopping about.
Oh Jesus!
I think that's probably the worst unveiling in Premier League history. I can't think of many. Oh no! I was at the Palace one last season where it was some random good phone tech shop and they opened up the laptop. Oh. Anyway.
Tell you what I thought was really weird. Can you remember Santi Cazorla when he got unveiled in that
Oh, in the Get Magic box thing with the steam.
But he was in it for about 20 minutes.
They just
I think it was stuck.
They just open up. Behold, Santi Cazorla, and he's just asphyxiated.
It was a bit of a weird one.
Very strange, very strange.
And to top it off, final question: which Premier League player, currently playing or previously, could eat a pizza the quickest?
Ooh, currently.
And to make it more interesting, I'm going to say it's that frozen Asda pizza that Canio's scoffing away at.
Does that include like cooking time, or who's liable just to
No,
scrap it
straight
raw?
off the plate. Timer ready to go.
Raw pizza.
Who could throw it away quickest?
Jamie Vardy.
Jamie Vardy, do you think?
Yes, because he's the only Premier League player I think that would eat a raw pizza because you just go Jamie, and I feel like
Now you see, I feel like if that was a doner kebab, I think Pickford would have a good, a good chance.
if it was a Chilino's doner kebab, I think Pickford's allow that.
I'd agree.
I think that's a good place to end it. That
Made us want a
don't
pizza.
don't
Not a raw one, like.
no the cooked one.
Times Asda should.
I don't
Got any
know.
frozen pizzas, like?
Well, that's a good place to end the recording. Don't unveil your player with raw pizza, and Jordan Pickford likes a kebab. Thanks for listening. If you listen, this has been our first episode, so please do give us a follow, share, comments if you think we're terrible.
Apologies to all the
Let
Leicester
us know.
fans out there.
Sorry, I do quite like Leicester. I will catch you later. See you later.